So how is the vote going for Elon Musk to get his $56 billion pay package over at Tesla? That's the subject of today's video, and let's just jump right in. There's a really funny tweet I saw today I want to share with you coming from Kiz, and this person writes, if you ask every retail, referring to retail investor, to give Elon 3% of their shares, 90% will say no. But if you ask them, let's dilute and give 10% of your shares to Elon, then 90% will say yes. This is why retail has IQ of 82 and can barely pass fourth grade math. And if you understand this tweet, you'll have a little chuckle. If you don't, unfortunately, you're going to get cheated. And this is something that I want to share with you guys all the time is I'll try to give you as much information as I can. Unfortunately, though, in social media, and be it Twitters or YouTubes or whatever, there's a lot of people out there who are pumping Tesla stock and promoting Tesla stock and basically lie to you all of the time. It's a real problem, and this is sort of why I think it's really important to keep you informed. Not everyone, though, is a complete moron. For example, you can see this one here. Tesla's top retail investors vote against restoring Elon Musk's 50 billion pay package, and essentially this is the largest individual investor. So they're saying here the biggest individual investor in dollars and third largest shareholder of Tesla, and that's Quoguan Leo. This particular person is against the pay package for Elon Musk, and he says, "Don't be a sucker, just vote no." If you guys think this person, hates Elon and Tesla, it's just simply not the case. They invested in Tesla. It doesn't necessarily mean, though, they want to vote for a bad deal. And essentially, if this deal passes for Elon and the board, it's going to come out of your pocketbook. One thing that I think is really interesting, though, is that if you look at the people who are pumping Tesla stock and pumping Elon, etc., someone like an Omar Quasi. So he does a Twitter called Holmar's Catalog, which is one of the big pumpers on social media. And someone was tweeting out this just recently, and I didn't know this actually. So I guess he's a convicted felon. That's his mugshot there. So again, this is one of the pumpers. This is the headline here. It says arrest in Brevard County. I think I found the court case. It's the United States is the plaintiff Omar. It's probably Quasi, I think how you say that. And this is back in June 2015. I was reading through this stuff, and you guys can correct me if this isn't the match, but I think it is. It's got the same name. The dates line up. I guess he had marijuana. It says here marijuana, crystal meth, and a black revolver. And then it was also saying, too, the officer was thinking he was going to maybe intent to distribute. So, I mean, if you cleaned yourself up, Omar, fantastic, but I don't know if this is the guy that I would necessarily be taking, stock advice from. But that's what people do. Unfortunately, on social media, it's filled with these types of people that have, checkered past and say, oh, yes, buy this crazy over, inflated valued thing and et cetera. And it's unfortunate, right? And essentially, a lot of people get cheated by this stuff. And, Tesla's now down half its value. You guys know this, I think, from the highs. I didn't check the exact percentage. Maybe it's 54% today or whatever. It's been bouncing around between 50 and 60% down from the highs. And then, the CEO asking for more money and threatening to leave. It's such a crazy drama. The other thing that's really crazy as well is I guess the vote isn't going well if you want this thing to pass. So the board is they've been trying to advertise to retail investors, basically. So it kind of fits in when I'm putting all this story together. It's looking like, and I don't know for sure, guys. I don't know for sure, but just from the public actions, if the board is now taking out ads to sort of convince retail investors on Twitter and Google and otherwise, it seems that they would only do that if they feel like the sort of scuttlebutt or the rumor mill is saying that the institutions are going to vote against the pay package. That's sort of my guess. And again, I'm just showing you guys some stuff. Now, in the past voting, which is really interesting, you can actually see it. There was some data on that, on who voted for and against. So much of the big money voted against the pay package back in 2018, be it Vanguard, State Street, Gold, Capital Group, Norges. BlackRock did vote for it. Just want to show you guys right here. But again, none of this stuff is guaranteed what it's going to be this time. But I'm thinking that the board and Elon are like, I'm getting a little bit nervous, and I think these kind of people are wise enough to know, yes, it's going to come out of your holdings and basically out of your pocketbook. And this is a time when the thing is going down. Do you want to have it go down more? The other thing too, which is like this is key, is like sort of the way this stuff was being described is oftentimes retail investors don't vote at all. right? And so if institutions who are definitely going to vote, and or pension funds or whatever are probably going to vote no, then they need to convince retail to vote yes. But you also have the biggest individual holder, which is that person I was showing you guys, going to vote no. So that's sort of why they're advertising. It kind of all fits in. Now, what's interesting back in 2018, and this is part of the argument back then, was that Elon Musk was going to use the money to go to Mars. And this was an old headline from 2017, so about the same time period. It says Elon Musk aims to land humans on Mars by the middle of next decade. So if you read the headline and if you believe everything Elon says, that means we need to be on Mars. And this is land on Mars next year, right? Because we're in 2024, the middle would be next year. If you want to be generous, 2 years from now in 2026, I don't think I don't think that's gonna happen. I don't think we're gonna get there. At least this decade, and guys, I've told this so many times. I would be all on board if Elon wants to, spend all his money and go crazy and try to, make a push to land on Mars and build colonies there. And I thought that stuff's pretty cool, actually, and interesting. I've never said anything about it stuff. I'm all about space travel and that stuff. I think it's cool. The problem right now is just like he's just spend all his time, instead of Tesla buying like this social media company and then just getting involved with all this sort of political stuff. And what's interesting about it, and this sort of goes back to the tweet here, right? And this is sort of like, how do you sell something? So the ads, the way they're trying to sell it to retail is like, oh, vote for freedom, vote for Elon's, a whole bunch of money, or save Tesla, vote for Elon, a whole bunch of money, right? They don't phrase it like, hey, Elon's going to take money from you. Vote for Elon, right? They don't phrase it in that way. So I thought this is kind of an apt description of that. And again, guys, I think probably the vote's not going well, but I don't know for sure, and we're not going to know for next month until how it shakes out. But just sort of what you can see what the board is doing, I feel like they're probably getting nervous. Now, what's interesting when you look at the numbers, I read different numbers on this stuff, and I think we don't know exactly, but we have ballpark. So one estimate said here, individual investors who often sit out shareholder votes entirely, meaning that oftentimes the individual retail doesn't vote, have about 30% of Tesla shares, okay? I got a couple different numbers on this, though, because I was looking at this chart here. This one says institutions have 44%, general public 42%, individual investors 13%. So it's like, okay, and the individual investor is probably more like your Elon, like so basically insiders, things like that is in this general public. But it's hard to say because I also got this number here that said institutional ownership is at 43%. Depending on which number you want to look at, like they all kind of coincide, but I don't think we know exactly. But I would say that this is probably in the ballpark. Like the word in the street is like all the institutions are going to vote no. And so that's why you would run the ad campaign. Because, and if you guys don't know what we're talking about, I made a separate video on that. It was in the SEC filings that they included, I think it was 3 of the social media people. It was like the Booma Mama person and the Sawyer person, and there was like a Stevenson person. But many of the social media people out there are like pumping you to vote for Elon's pay, which is really a bizarre thing if you think about it. But if you understand that these people are paid, then suddenly it makes perfect sense. Because logically speaking, again, you're convincing people to take money out of their pocketbook and give it to Elon, essentially, right? And so I understand that some people really believe in the whole political stuff aspect of this, but it depends how you want to phrase it. And my point of view on this stuff, just talking about money, I think it's kind of a, how can I say, a crazy thing to say, hey, let's reward this guy for crashing the stock and leaving the company in terms of his time, right? He does not spend 100% time at Tesla. And I've mentioned that several times that if you were at a regular company with a board that was more separate, that they would have kicked him out and fired him, a long time ago for moonlighting somewhere else. And it's funny when you see people defending that kind of stuff. The other thing is too, you get these weird headlines and this kind of stuff. Like look at this one: Tesla denies Musk bullied scholar over 56 billion pay votes. Like what the heck is this stuff? I read through a lot of these things on the internet, and I try my best to decipher it, because some of this stuff you really have to read the details of it. Like this one is over, like, I guess there was a professor that was criticizing the thing. I think they were at the University of Delaware or something like that, but it wasn't that interesting to me. So that's why I was like, okay, whatever this. And like some of the stuff you gotta like spend a lot of time digging through, and it's like not really worth it. Whereas like stuff like this, I'll just give an example. this is like, hey, how is it going to vote? And when you read the details, this is from Tesla already, and I think they're kind of a pro Tesla place. They did like a survey of 48 people, and it's like, oh, these out of these 48 people, a bunch of them said yes, but they were at least honest about that. They're saying, this is an extremely small sample size. But from what I can tell, guys, from the stuff that I was reading today, it's my guess would be the institutions are going to vote no, and then essentially the retail is going to be the deciding vote, right? And the other thing too, which I want to mention as well, is remember the chair of the board is also selling her stock, so which is kind of interesting, and we'll see where it goes. The argument would be to vote for would be, well, if we don't pay Elon, if we don't give him all his money or whatever, he's not going to stay at Tesla, so he's kind of like an ultimatum: pay me or I leave. So that's going to cost you. If Elon ultimately leaves, I think a lot of the hype for the company will dissipate basically. So that'll cost you as well. But my personal opinion for the future is likely Elon will raise some money to do his XAI project and sort of jump ship to go do that. So that's what I'm thinking. I'd like to hear your thoughts, and I'll catch you all in the next video.